So if you'll open that up, looks like this. So, and it's from the Caged Bird Zoo. Here. Okay, everybody good to go? Everybody open up. Okay. Okay, so on this poem, there was a few of you that did great, perfect answers on this. So those of you who did this and did your work, please be open to give out some answers, yell out, shout out what you think the answers are. Because I don't want to be the only one talking here. So guys need to be, get rid of that mute and put your voice on and interact, okay? So makes it easier, makes time fly faster here. So don't be afraid to talk. All your answers are correct. So if you're giving some answers, and you're trying, that's really what is looking good for you. So, all right. So we got The Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. She's written a whole novel on this as well. This is a poem that she wrote that stems from another poem, which is Sympathy, is what we went through last week. But she talks a lot about this free bird and lots of imagery of positive things that comes from being free and without those limits and constrictions in our life. So, and we all have those different limitations in our lives, whether it be, that we've been grounded, whether it be that we can't go out because of COVID. We can't just hang out with our friends like we used to. There's lots of different things that limit us. Sometimes we don't feel like we're free as our friends. In some cases, maybe they have more money, maybe they live in a different area of town, or maybe they don't have the same parents. Whatever it is, we feel like we always don't have the same freedoms. But she's talking about more or less of the issue of really what it is to be free. In that first stanza, she talks about like the free bird leaps, and the free bird is more or less a symbol, okay? So the free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. So all that is very positive images of what's going on with this free bird and what she or he sees, okay, when being free. Then she contrasts this free bird to a caged bird, of course, when she says, but a bird that stalks down the narrow cage, so now we're within a cage now, can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. So of course there, knowing from history and what you've talked about on slavery and those things, that you can probably infer that this bird is now in a cage like a slave would be. They're in chains, or they're tied down, they can't escape. Okay, and they're in this emotional state of rage because they have no escape. They don't know they're this. So that's what those bars of rage are. No escape for them. It's a brutal life. So then she goes on, the caged bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown, but long for still. So she's going on about going back now towards the freedom. She's longing for that freedom that, she's known, she's tasted. His tune is heard on a distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. And then we go on, the free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade winds soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. So it's still going on about the freedom and how it feels to be free, going through and feeling those winds through his wings, eating those nice juicy fat worms on the lawns, and just making a sky his own, okay? That freedom is his or hers. And then it says, then it goes back and talks about the caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts and the nightmares scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. And he's not singing for joy, but he's singing for that, freedom that, he or she so longs to feel again. The caged bird sings with a fearful thrill of things unknown, but long for still. And his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. All right, so within that poem, it's definitely much more positive, lots of different things that convey freedom of a bird rather than being caged. And in the poem Sympathy, Dunbar is he talks about the negative, the brutality, the horrors of being caged more so than what Angelou does. All right, so if you go back here to the poem, the questions here on the caged bird. Now, like I said, some of you got these finished, you're great. And I'm just going through and making sure I answer some questions of those who didn't quite understand it possibly, or finish it, or, okay. So the first one contrasts the free bird of stanza 1 of Angelou's poem with the life of the caged bird in Dunbar's poem. Again, I talked about how in that first stanza, it's very positive things that this free bird sees and feels. Just a very positive emotional state about being free. Okay, that's kind of where that one exists. But if you looked at Sympathy in Dunbar's poem, Sympathy was, like I said, more. So he talks about, oh my goodness gracious, all these commercials are, what's going on with this? Anyway, in Sympathy, he talks more of he starts off with the caged bird. And he talks about how his freedom has been stolen as a caged bird. So there's a little bit of positivity in there, but it's more, he starts out with being a cage, where in the first stanza of Angelou's Field, she's talking about the freedom that you feel if you don't have those restrictions or limitations on you, okay? Number 2, how does the free bird and the caged bird symbolize conditions faced by different groups of people? What groups of people fit into this category? Guys, different, even you yourselves face different limitations in life, or things that you don't feel like you have those freedoms that other people do, okay? So, and of course, these poems are a little bit more drastic probably than what you face, being in bars, within bars, and just never being able to get out at all. So, of course, you're dealing with people that have been discriminated against. You're dealing with slavery issues, and so, you guys have any other suggestions on this answer? How does the free bird and the caged bird symbolize conditions faced by different groups of people? Anybody have an answer? Want to chime in? Because I know that some of you, everybody's deprived of freedoms and opportunities in some capacity. It's all through the years in the past, there's all kinds of oppression that's existed for women, for people of color. Anybody else look at Jews, you know, looking back at the Holocaust? Anybody else? So those are some different groups of people there. Okay, so, and number 3, explain what the sky symbolizes in the last line of the poem and why the sky is an appropriate symbol. Okay, this sky is actually talking about this last line where it says the free bird thinks of another breeze and the trade winds of soft through the sighing trees and the fat worms waiting on a dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. So what does the sky symbolize there?
Awaiting freedom.
Didn't quite hear it. You say like freedom? I think that's what I heard.
Awaiting freedom.
Awaiting freedom. Good job. Like it is, I mean, awaiting freedom, and it's just talking about those limitations that that we have. And it's, you know, he so wants to just see these, be in this breeze, to go with the trade winds and just fly away, eat everything that he wants, do anything that he wants, make the sky his own. Just like we say, you got to make your life your own. Go with your dreams, follow your dreams. We know you can. So, but you guys always, you know, I mean, people, I mean, human beings are always those, you know, we lack that confidence in ourselves sometimes to feel like we can be free or do some of these things or meet these dreams sometimes. And so yeah, it's talking about those freedoms and those limitations that we have to make our existence just limitless. Okay. Anybody else have anything you want to add? Okay, so the cage bird it's an extended metaphor for what? Remember, an extended metaphor goes throughout the story or the poem. There's something that's compared throughout the whole entire story. So what is it an extended metaphor for? What do you think? Eve, what do you think? What is she actually probably referring to for the most part? This Kate. What? Slavery?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with you. Okay. Any questions on that, guys? Need to go over any more? All right, so this last one is kind of an analysis of all 3 poems plus the next one by Emily Dickinson. We never know how high we are. In the title itself, we never is a little bit of a symbol, a symbolic of humans in their capacity to actually meet their dreams. You guys know, I mean, you have classmates and, you know, maybe parents that said, I always wanted to be a lawyer. I always want to be a doctor. I always want to be a veterinarian. And maybe they're not that, but maybe they work in a similar field, okay? You know, whether it was money that stopped their dreams from happening, whether it was family issues, whether it was just society in itself that stopped the dreams. I mean, there's probably, we all have dreams that we can go further, but sometimes we just feel like we're limited, okay? And we feel like there's just too many things stopping us from actually meeting our dreams. And, you know, that's why we always say, you got to plan out your life. You got to get some goals going for yourself. You know, I know you guys have, you know, this um, different advisory classes and sort of seminar classes, so to speak, that, you know, you're making goals, you're making pathways for yourself on different interests and trying to figure out how you're going to get to that, that existence. And it's important to plan those out, because if you don't plan it out or make goals for yourself, you're never going to get anywhere. So it doesn't mean that maybe that, you know, maybe you want to be a, you know, a surgeon. Well, you may not make it, but if you want to go in that area, that interest, maybe you'll make it in some area of that field, which is why we make goals for ourselves. And we try anyway, we plan it out. So she's actually talking about how we make these plans, and we have the capabilities, but there's just too many intimidators in our life that we feel like we just can't do it. I just can't do it. It's that can't word that always gets in our way sometimes. We just fear what we fear that king, that intimidation. Like, well, I'll never be able to do that because he's got like a 4.0 grade point average and he's in the sports, he's athletic. I'll never be able to do what he does. Doesn't mean that, you know, if you do the work that's involved, doesn't mean that you can't do it. It's just that confidence gets in our way. So she says, we never know how high we are till we are asked to rise. And then if we are true to plan, our statures touch the sky. So our statures, you know, that's our, you know, our height of what we can do. We can do anything if we, you know, we just put our heart and our mind to it, right? That's what they say, right? But sometimes we just lack that confidence. It says the heroism we recite would be a normal thing, did not ourselves the cubits warp for fear to be king. So the cubits were those people that, you know, fear or have anxiety. So their whole emotional state becomes twisted and out of, you know, like when you guys get so nervous because maybe you get out, you're going to get up and do a speech and debate, and you see these two are going at it and they're strong and they're like, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to do that. It's not that you can't. It's just that we have to believe in ourselves. But a lot of times she's saying that we don't. We have this confidence that gets in our way sometimes. We fear to be king. So doesn't mean that we can't. It just means that we have to believe in ourselves. And that's what she says, that sometimes that just gets in our way. We don't feel like we can do it. So we feel like we want these freedoms, but we feel like we're not there. I'm not that person. I can't do it. But just have to believe in ourselves sometimes. Okay. So going on, what, if anything, has made you feel like a caged bird? That's your own answer. Maybe you've been grounded. Maybe you've been stuck in this COVID situation. You're like, I'm going mad. Maybe you went mad a long time ago. But so that was just kind of your own answer. What makes you feel like a caged bird? You know, sometimes being teenagers, I know you probably get that feeling a lot. Caged up in your room with nothing to do. Got no money. Got no car. So sometimes we feel like a caged bird. What discovery does the speaker make in each poem? Okay, so what's the discovery in each of the poems, from Sympathy to Caged Bird to this poem? What discovery does each poet make? Anybody have an idea? Even in this poem, this person, or, you know, we as humans don't feel like we can touch the skies, right? We don't feel like we can have that freedom. We feel caged because of our limitations. Maybe we don't have enough money. Maybe we're not tall enough. Maybe we're not smart enough. Maybe we're not athletic enough. Whatever it might be, we feel like we have these limitations and we feel caged up for some reason, okay? Just like Sympathy, he was caged up, and he talked about the brutality of being caged up. Just like Caged Bird, again, being caged up. You know, we're we don't get to see all these freedoms and how it is because of being in a cage. So all these poems, this theme of all these poems kind of correlate together, that it's just discovery of feeling caged. So if you didn't get that in your answer, go ahead and make sure you, if you have any questions or concerns, shout them out. Number 3, what does a caged bird want to do? What's it want to do? What's the caged bird want to do?
Leave the cage.
Get out of that cage. Be free. Yeah. Break through those bars and be free. Of what does the free bird in Angelou's poem think? Okay, that's in the caged bird. Of what does he think? Okay. The free bird thinks of another breeze and the trade winds of soft through the sighing trees and the fat worms waiting on the dawn bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. So right there, he thinks of these winds, these soft winds that he can just fly and flow through. He thinks of all the fat worms that's waiting for him in all these lawns. So if you didn't catch that, hope you caught that in that stanza, what he's thinking, what he's longing for. Number 5, according to Dickinson's poem, what happens when we are asked to rise to the occasion? What happens when we're asked to rise to the occasion? So like, you have those people that, they talk the talk. I mean, you've seen them do great things, do speeches, whatever it might be. I mean, you've seen those people that just, that they can do these things, and yourself has, you can do these great things, and whether it's, in science, and that you are very strong in that area, but yet you're that person probably that when it comes to tests and things like that, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to flunk. I'm not going to get it. I got to study more. I didn't study enough. I didn't study the right things. Ugh. So, that's our distorted feeling that sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for who we are and what we can do. So that's more, of a human nature. We just don't sometimes give ourselves enough credit for what we really can do. So, any thoughts to that? Devin, anything there? Not really? All right. On 6, what might the cage symbolize or represent in Dunbar's poem? That was sympathy. What's the cage symbolize? Yell it out, shout it out. If you have a, being in a cage, yeah, it could definitely symbolize slavery, which you guys, I know we've talked about, but it could also talk about, just the plainly being discriminated against because of our color, because of our class, because of how much money we have, because of our stature, whatever it might be. There's, Dunbar is actually, how it feels to be in a cage and the brutality we face within society because of how limited we are in money and power. And so, all right, questions on that? Elizabeth, do you have any questions? Shout outs? Veronica? Okay. Going on. So number 8 says, does Dickinson feel that people are capable of acting better than they do, or that they do not give themselves credit for the good things they actually accomplish? Okay, this is when she's says like, well, we know, when we plan and we plan it out, we can reach great things. We can be heroes. We can, we know we've done things that we know that proves that we can do things. But sometimes it just feels like, we just don't give ourselves enough credit for the accomplishments that we have made in our lives. So that's kind of where she's coming from. Sometimes we just don't give ourselves enough credit. Just got to believe in ourselves more, and sometimes we don't. Okay, number 9, explain how a human could be the equivalent of a caged bird or a free bird. On number 9, how could you be equivalent to a caged bird or a free bird? Sometimes because maybe a person grows up in poverty and never has the money to actually or the help that they need to actually maybe go to college. And sometimes because if they don't have that college experience, maybe they can't get the job that they know they can do, and they feel like they're in a cage because they're having to listen and be told what to do when they themselves actually probably could run the show. But because of limitations, because of different areas where, freedom didn't exist for them, sometimes they feel like a caged bird. Okay. So it could be that, that could be discrimination as well. Sometimes we just don't, we're discriminated against because of our color or our race or our gender. So on 10, is Dickinson more likely to see people as caged or free birds? Caleb, how about you? Give me an answer on that one. What do you think? No? Elizabeth, got an answer? Sailor, got an answer? What do you think Dickinson thinks? Do we feel like caged birds or free birds? So if you look at this, we talk about the things that we plan and we dream for ourselves. And we do the talk. We know, we've had practice in some cases, but sometimes we just lack that confidence or the belief in ourselves, and we cage ourselves up because we are scared. Okay, we fear to be a king. In other words, we fear to do this, to live up to our dreams because we're intimidated by something. We don't have the confidence, whatever it might be. So we're a little bit caged in some ways. We cage ourselves up sometimes just because we don't believe in ourselves. So. On 11, it says, what lines in Dickinson's poem indicate the main idea? The main idea, guys, anybody want to shout out that one? What they think the main idea is? If you look at that, the first couple lines, we never know how high we are till we're asked to rise. So, if we are studying World War II and we're getting ready to introduce that subject matter of World War II, and I know you know, Devin has read a lot of books on that era, and, you know, the Holocaust and all in that, you know, I know he's got it. And I asked, hey, Devin, would you want to get up and, you know, discuss something with that, with World War II that, you know, that you've read and you're very knowledgeable about? And they're like, no, heck no, no way. Nope, can't feed me enough, can't give me enough money for that, no. And sometimes, you know, you guys are like, I'm ready. Yeah, sure, I can do that, you know. But a lot of times we're scared to do that kind of task just on a whim. Even if we know about it ahead of time, you're scared to get up and do those tasks because it's just, you lack that confidence in yourself. So even though you may know it and you may have a great deal of knowledge over that particular subject area, like World War II, sometimes we don't want to get up and show that we know it. So those first two lines, of course, those are your main ideas, guys. Those first two lines there. Okay. On the figurative devices, alliteration, of course, we talked about in our notes. That's the one that about alliteration where that initial sound repeats, you know, Billy Bear buys bones for his baby bear. So alliteration is giving those initial sounds that repeat throughout. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, okay? So I wanted to go back to Dunbar's poem, which is Sympathy, and find an example of alliteration, okay? I even give you the line, it looks like. You're going, again, in Dunbar's poem, Sympathy, find an example of a simile. We've discussed this one, so hopefully you don't have any problems with that. Personification in Angelou's poem, In the Caged Bird. I want you to find what human qualities are given to something that's not really human, okay? And then I want you to write an example of hyperbole within Dickinson's poem, okay? Some exaggerated device that's used. Questions on that, anybody? Shout it out if there are right now, because it's the time to do it.
They can go back and look at their notes from our first week too, right? If they have questions about what these are, these words that are in bold.
That's what those notes are for. Look at them. Spend a lot of time on those notes, so make sure you look at them. Refer back to them. That way you're retaining that information more. Okay? All right, so that one, you guys, I want you to make sure that you get through those assignments, turn them in, please. Hopefully I went through everything with you. Some of you, like I said, a couple of you did a great job on answering those questions and trying to get through. Some of you there was a little bit of concern on your answers, so that's kind of why I went through those, and hopefully you understand better and got your answers complete. So I hope. Okay, so this is all needs to be turned in, okay? This whole assignment, all these need to be turned in, and I'll give you a final score on that. Some of you got a score if you hadn't done much work. I went ahead and scored what you had just so you kind of have an idea. So I posted that on Classroom. So doesn't mean that's your final score. As long as you get your work done and get them completed, then I'll go back and change that, okay? All right. Okay, you guys, I want you to, there's no questions on that. I posted another assignment called an obstacle, okay? It's called an obstacle and a TED Talk. The TED Talk is a guy he's speaking about really a lot about the main theme of an obstacle. And his name's Michael Kimmel, and he's a psychologist and a sociologist, and he teaches at a university, and very humorous. He's got a lot of good jokes within his speeches. So I thought it was pretty cool. So the poem, An Obstacle, was done by a feminist, a lady. This particular poem, it's set up in the stanza form again, and each stanza she changes. And Charlotte Gilman, like I said, she was writing short stories and things, and poetry back in the feminist movement, where they're trying to get equal rights. Women were trying to get equal rights, and of course, we had a lot of, again, slavery was going on, and voting, and there was a lot of different things that were within this era that, of course, led to the Civil War and trying to get equality and things like that. So she writes based on, you know, she's got a lot of ideas and a lot of things going on in her head that she really wants to get done. And of course, she has a lot of things in her own life too that she's working with, and maybe she has a family and kids, but she's really trying to do some bold things in her day in this time of day for a woman. But she's always blocked. She's limited on how much she can get done. And this limited power is known in this poem as prejudice. She calls it prejudice because of, and she's speaking of men in this case. So prejudice is actually personified as, you know, the white man in this case. And she just can't get anything done. She can't get her ideas across. She's got all kinds of things she'd like to do, but this higher power here is blocking her. Okay. So in this first line, she says, I was climbing up a mountain path with many things to do. She's climbing up, you know, all those struggles that we face, guys, you know, you're going to face struggles throughout your whole entire life, and you're going to make it through as long as you keep your head up high and keep your goals intact, and you know, you're going to make it through, but it's going to be a struggle. No matter, I mean, everybody goes through those struggles, and that's what the setting is. So it's set like I was climbing up a mountain path with many things to do, important businesses of my own and other people's too. When I ran against prejudice, that quite cut off the view. So she's got this important business. She got other people's business to do. She's got all these ideas, and then she's this prejudiced, this, you know, in this case, she's speaking of man, all right, white men, and she can't get anything done, no, because nobody will listen, okay? So she's just been cut off. So the second stanza says, my work was such as could not wait. My path quite clearly showed. My strength and time were limited. I carried quite a load. And there that hulking prejudice sat all across the road. It's just massive. She just has all these things, and she's limited on what she can do. She knows what she's got to do. She says, my path clearly showed. I just wanted to get my thing. I knew I can't wait. But everything's limited because prejudice is just blocking me. Nobody will listen to me. It just sat there across the road. She can't do anything. She's blocked. So she says, so I spoke to him politely, for he was huge and high, and begged that he would move a bit and let me travel by. He smiled, but as for moving, he didn't even try. So he's just like, I tried to be polite, but nope, he was just gonna sit there, not gonna move. He was done. And then she says, so then I reasoned. So she tried to be polite. Now she's reasoning with him. And she refers to this prejudice as a colossal mule, like it's huge. And mules, of course, are stubborn, right? So it's colossal. It's like, I can't get anything done because everybody just won't listen. They're stubborn about their own ways. So my time was short, no other path. The mountain winds were cool. I argued like a Solomon. He sat there like a fool. So she's trying to come up with these wise interpretations of what she can do and what she has planned, but nope, I'm not going to listen to you. You're just, you're dumb. And then she says, I fly into a passion and I danced and howled and I swore, I pelted and I belabored him till I was stiff and sore. He got as mad as I did, but he sat there as before. So she's throwing things and she's swearing and she's having this fit. She doesn't know what to do. She's arguing with him, but nope. He just sat there, got mad like she did, like, are you done? So, and then I begged him on my knees. I might be kneeling still if I so hope to move that mass of obdurate ill will, very stubborn. As well invite the monument to vacate Bunker Hill. Bunker Hill, great big battle there, and there's a statue there that is huge and massive, and it's not going to move. And that's kind of what she was dealing with this stubborn prejudice that she's facing. So I sat there before him helpless in an ecstasy of woe. So she's got this feeling of it's an overwhelming feeling, right? This ecstasy of woe, like, oh, what do I do? The mountain mists were rising fast, the sun was sinking slow. When a sudden inspiration came, a sudden winds do blow. This inspiration said, hey, so I took my hat off, I took my stick, my load I settled fair. I approached that awful incubus with an absent-minded air, and I walked directly through him as if he wasn't there. So she finally caught on and, maybe you just have to ignore all those people that are against you and discriminating against you, and you just got to move on. Do what you can and move on. Okay? And that's how she ended that. She finally got through that prejudice right there. When she finally settled, I just got to ignore it and I got to do my thing. I got to follow my dreams. Okay. So you guys, on your notes, you guys have some questions over this poem, okay, that are here. And I do want you to try your best. I'm not looking for you to actually finish. I want you to try your best and answer what you can. The last few questions, it's going to be based on the speech. So go ahead and look at some questions that's based on the obstacle. Like I said, do what you can. Don't worry about right or wrong, but I do want to see some participation. I open these up, guys, whether you've turned in them or not, and I see what you've worked on. So try to do some on your own and see how you do based on what your comprehension level of that. But I do want to make sure that you watch the video. It's the TED Talk, okay? And after the TED Talk, then go ahead and answer those questions in red. I put it in red because TED Talks are always in red. So 13 and 14 have to do with the speech, and go ahead and do those based on the TED Talk after you've watched that, okay? So make sure as homework, answer a few of these of what you know, what you comprehended. If you can, do your best. We'll talk about that a little bit, but do make sure that you watch the TED Talk and answer those questions, okay, based on what you learned from that speech, okay? That'll help you out to kind of give an understanding of the poem. Okay? Questions, shout out, anybody? Concerns, gripes? All right. If you guys have any other questions, you know what to do? Emily, you're good? Eve? Okay. Veronica? All right. I'll see you guys later. Let me know if you have any. Yeah, I saw her for a second. Yay! I saw Veronica. Did you see that? All right. You guys, we'll see you next week. Have a great week.